Hello, and welcome to today's demo, Detecting and Enforcing Mac Spoofing Events in Real Time. My name is Adam Beckman, and I'm a Solutions Engineer here at Great Bay Software. I've been in the industry for about 12 years now, in all phases of IT, from help desk to service development to boots on the ground deployment. And today I'm excited to speak with you about Mac spoofing and some of the ways that it can happen and how visibility solutions can help alleviate that. So good visibility does serve as the foundation to any good security practice. That's well known, and there are obviously many benefits to having complete visibility to your network, like detections of Mac spoof events, which we'll show here in a minute. But there's other benefits as well, things such as ease of use. So device mobility is something that, as we become more advanced in our networking and our networks become more complex and there's move to mobility, the need to be able to easily move devices around a network becomes more and more critical. The ease of use comes into play with the Mac spoof because you need to be able to differentiate between one device changing locations to being detected in two different locations at the same time. Also, there's a procurement and licensing benefit. It obviously come time for license renewals for certain vendors, such as like a SmartNet renewal for Cisco. Having an accurate count of your devices can be very beneficial and recognize very quickly a good ROI on a visibility solution. So with that, let's jump into the demo. Today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to walk you through a scenario. That scenario entails the use of a network camera. So the way Mac spoof typically would go down is that someone would get onto a network or get into an area and they would find a device that is allowed to authenticate. Now, that identifying that device can happen a number of ways. It can be from sniffing somehow on the network to actually walking down to a physical location and finding a printer or other device and reading a sticker off the side. In this case here, I've got a D-Link network security camera. As you can tell, there's a sticker on the side that has the MAC ID, the MAC address ID on it. Writing that down, knowing that this device is plugged in, having that information now should allow me to execute a Mac spoof event from this location or from another location with an address that has already been authorized on the network. So if you jump into our interface, I want to actually look at that device and see what its current status is. Now, I'm on my dashboard, and I could drill in from a bunch of menu options up here to get to it, but instead I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add our authentication widget. So I have the ability here to view. Let's move it over to the right here because I think it makes a little more sense over here. I can actually see that I've got one device that is currently authenticating on my network and allowed to access. Selecting this report brings me to the report page, and I can see indeed this is the D-Link security camera on the network. We are a profiling-based system, so we've not only know the MAC address, but based on how the device behaves in the network, we've identified it as a D-Link DCS933L network security camera, which is the make and model. This is the MAC address, and as you can see, it is currently authenticating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift gears here, and I'm going to pretend like I'm a black hat, and I'm going to take a Windows station. You can do this with any type of device, Linux, Mac. They all have the ability to do this. And I'm going to change my MAC address to that of this network security camera. In Windows, as in the other ones, it's fairly straightforward. It's just a matter of a software setting that is not very hard to get to or take much knowledge in the way of being able to execute. So by changing my MAC address there, my device is now trying to get on the network, and in the typical scenario or a typical network with not very great countermeasures to something like a Mac spoof attack or a great visibility solution, I should be able to get on, at least for a little while, until some other mechanism triggers some reaction or recognition that I'm not supposed to be there. If I come back here and I check and see my main page here, you'll notice that my device has changed from a D-Link network camera to a Windows device. Now that's obviously a sign that we are aware of what's going on, and that is not a good thing to have happen. And additionally, since I disconnected, I should be able to notify somebody and take action on that, right? So let's look and let's see what's happened within the platform in this minute since we've connected. let's come up here to our endpoints and look at our events, endpoint console, and let's do a quick read. All right, and as we can see here, we've got a bunch of events. I actually didn't need to refresh because if I scroll down, it happens within a couple seconds of these other events coming in. So it is here. We see that there was a MAC spoof underway. We see the address of the camera and the attacker, being that they're the same MAC address. We can also see that we had a shift from the camera profile into a Windows profile based on just the device trying to access the network. We also see the updated location for this attack. So note this attack did not occur on the same port. Now it could have, but since I'm remotely doing this webinar, it's difficult for me to to go over the lab and swap a cable out. So it's easier just to do a different location. So it's updated that as well. Now if I jump in and actually look at the configurations of this event, there's a number of things that could take place in addition to just being generating an alert. So you note here that we can also take additional responses, things like triggering the port to change its access levels. In this case, I'm just doing simple alerting, so I'm not changing any access levels. I'm going to allow this device on. But I could very as well go in and terminate access or isolate it and quarantine it in addition to the alert. So a little more color on MAC spoof scenarios before we wrap up. I hope you enjoyed that brief demo. There are numerous ways that MAC spoof events can occur. I did allude to a location being one of the factors, right? You could do a same location to disconnect the port, plug it into the port. The different iterative scenarios, things like what type of device you're trying to spoof. Is it a traditional device, an unmanaged device, IoT style location, and then whether or not you're doing wired or wireless, all come into place where different technologies have different strengths or weaknesses. Some things just to keep in mind, though, there's several traditional security approaches to a MAC spoof or to prevent a MAC spoof, one of which, the basic one that most people are familiar with, is port security. I like to call this sticky MAC in the old Cisco days, but it's where you associate a specific MAC address to a specific port on a wired switch. It doesn't work on wireless side, but on a wired network, it's good for locking the port down to a single device. There's a lot of limitations. Obviously, it's very easy to do a MAC spoof as long as you keep the location the same, but alternate locations, it's a little stronger. The limitation of wireless, which I mentioned, but also it's really hard to manage because nowadays as devices become more mobile, it's difficult to maintain that level or that security practice. You graduate to something like a traditional MAB where you have a kind of a whitelist style approach. You have a list of accepted devices, and it doesn't matter where they connect, it all references back to the same list, and then as long as it's on that list, it's allowed on. A little more flexible in terms of being able to move devices around, and it works equally on wireless as it does wired. However, this list is very susceptible to something like a MAC spoof because it doesn't just protect against one location and not alternate locations. You can attack from either. So it doesn't offer good strength to that type of scenario. The 802.1x, which is kind of the next step up, is really great when it comes to traditional devices because it's certificate-based authentication. So instead of just a MAC address, there's an actual encrypted key that gets exchanged, or user credentials that gets exchanged as part of that authentication. There's two downsides to that. One is it only works on traditional devices, so you're kind of back to square one and leveraging an older type of solution for your unmanaged. But also, some 802.1x solutions, that authentication or that re-authentication timer, is every say hour or 2 hours, right? So if you disconnect that device and connect in a new device with the same MAC address, then you have to wait that set time until that re-auth occurs before it'll catch the spoof and then kick you off the network. So depending on the technology in place and the vendor you're using, that is a valid concern. So I'm sure you may have more questions about our solutions and diving into other use cases. Here's some great references to check out. Specifically, I like to call out our product overview. It goes into some additional technical aspect details of our product and something you may be interested in. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any more questions about network visibility or MAC spoofs or any other use case that you may want to inquire about. I hope you found today's demo about MAC spoofing valuable, and remember to check out our other demo videos for more ways network visibility speeds and incident response and achieves operational efficiencies. You can also email me or email info@greatbaysoftware.com for more information. Thank you for viewing, and have a great rest of your day.